Yay. Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Is my sound okay? I didn't have any
Yeah, it's really good actually.
headphones. Okay, great. I'm in a very quiet house right now.
You have like a very like zen background.
Yeah, the color is actually pretty dark, but it shows up really light on the camera. So
Yeah, it looks good. You
thanks.
look great.
Hello.
So, hi,
Hi.
Adriana.
Well,
Hi,
good. I'm
Adriana.
glad you have more. Hi. Hi, Jamie.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Just spilled water all over me.
I
Okay, well,
love
thank
that
you
it's
for
you and
joining
me
me.
on this with
I
I know. Did
know.
you
Rebecca.
plan that on purpose or did that just happen by accident?
I didn't. I left it all with Vera. There were like 5 people who wanted to like be on the podcast,
Yeah.
and I think Vera just matched people based on like availability, obviously, but also like I just think it's so perfect. Yesterday I chatted with Ariella and Yazit, which was
Mhm.
Yes.
great. I chatted with a new member, this girl Amanda. She's awesome. She just did POP. She just joined Designers Room. You guys are gonna love her. She has been in a corporate world for 30 years in banking and just started her business. She's got like an exit plan in 10 years. She's going to sell. Like she's so intentional, and she's in New Hampshire. So I'm excited to have her in the group because she's got like different knowledge.
Mhm.
And like the way she talked about things like from her experience in the banking world was really good. It was just like, right, that's why you don't share your discounts. There's like so many other reasons that, as creatives, we don't even think about.
Hmm.
So it's so cool. It's really cool to like talk to people who come from very different backgrounds, but you guys have a sort of similar background. So that's why I'm excited to do this one with you guys.
Mhm. Adriana and I know each other for a long time.
We went to
So
school
let's like
together.
talk about that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's already recording. I'm going to pause it. All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business. Okay, I'm so excited to have you ladies here, Jamie and Adriana. Welcome to Resilient by Design. Adriana, you've been on the podcast before. Your episode was number 97. So guys, if you love today, which you will, you're definitely going to want to go and check out episode 97 of the podcast. It's called Overcoming Imposter Syndrome and Getting Comfortable with Being Uncomfortable. This is a long title, by the way. I don't know why we made such a long title. Overcoming Imposter Syndrome and Getting Comfortable with Being Uncomfortable with corporate designer turned entrepreneur and Power of Process alumni with Adriana Pietropaolo. Wow, that is a mouthful, but it is a really good episode. Adriana, why don't you introduce yourself first?
Thank you for having me again, Rebecca. My name is Adriana. I am the founder and principal designer of Adriana Pietropaolo Design, which is just my name. And I have been in business for, I guess, 2.5 years officially now, since leaving the corporate design studio world. And I met you through POP in 2021, and it was a game changer for me and my business.
Awesome. And in a minute, we're going to talk about this corporate world that you came from and that experience and that transition. Jamie, how about you want to introduce yourself to everyone here?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So my name's Jamie Khan, and my business is Jamie Lee Khan Interiors. I've been in business now for 5 years on my own, and I also came from a corporate background. So Adriana and I have known each other for a long time. Yeah, I work mainly in residential design, so with a little other stuff sprinkled in here and there.
And you are both located in Toronto.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. Locals. So tell me a little bit about how you guys know each other, because that's something that I think is kind of neat. I mean, I met Adriana first, then she's like, I told my friend Jamie she has to sign up for Power Process. So you're friends, you're not just industry colleagues who met inside the course or inside Designers Room. So tell me about that. I think it's so cool.
You want to go or you want me to go?
I'll start. You finish. So after high school, I went to U of T and I did a full degree there in art history and decided I still wanted to pursue my passion in interior design and started out at Humber and then switched over to what is now known as TMU, but at the time was Ryerson School of Interior Design. And I was one of the older, mature students in that year. And Jamie and I were in the same class. Funny enough, like I feel throughout the 3 years of overlap, we never worked on projects together, but we were always in the same major classes. And we were more acquaintances during school, if anything. And then afterwards, I was being mentored by a senior designer at HOK, which is a large interior architecture firm globally, and they have the largest interiors group in Toronto. So I started a mentorship there through fourth year, and then eventually I started working there. And I believe, Jamie, this is where you can correct me if I'm wrong, you had already been working there through school, and then we started working there together afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, everything Adriana says is correct. And yeah, I actually did 2 internships at school. So I did one at 2x4 Design for a year and a bit. And then I did a second one at HOK. And yeah, throughout school, throughout the summer, I was working there. I did my internship, but then I continued to work there sort of like one day a week while I was in school. And then, yeah, and then I just started working there after school was finished. So, and then we kind of worked on the same team, adjacent teams. You know, we kind of get moved around a little bit because it's a pretty big interiors group, but we were always, you know, within earshot of each other pretty much. So,
And socializing a lot.
and socializing. Yeah.
I like that. Let's be honest. What did you do? How did you socialize? No, I'm joking. That's not what today's about. I think that's so cool that you guys met working at the same design firm, but found out, oh, we were in school together. We didn't really realize it. I guess, Jamie, you were maybe a couple of years ahead in your
No,
program.
we were in the same class. We were together in class. Yeah, in the same year. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think you might be the first designers I've had on the podcast who have done the full school, but also then worked for a period of time, like in the sort of corporate world and to a degree, working in commercial hospitality design. Before we kind of dive into that transition from that to obviously that you both now run your own design firms, what was that experience like in a nutshell, working, and how many years were you working in that commercial world before branching out on your own?
Yeah, so I worked in the commercial world pretty much from like I graduated in 2013 and I was working there kind of 2012. And then I left there in 2018. I had 2 kids in between, so I had 2 mat leaves. Yeah, so and then I branched out on my own. So I've been doing interior design for 10 years now since school was finished. So
And for me, a little bit longer than Jamie. So I started off in commercial design, so office spaces, client-facing spaces, and then I really transitioned myself into hospitality, hotels, restaurants, food and beverage spaces. And that I think was about for 7 years before I also went on a maternity leave in 2020. And then also the world imploded.
Right. So lots of experience.
Yeah.
And working in those commercial design firms, I would assume that you would have been registered interior designers. Like, did you do the NCIDQ, like do the whole 9 yards?
It's a good question. This is a hot topic, Rebecca. Really
I know, very hot.
I already did a podcast on this one.
So
it is.
So for me, I actually registered for the NCI. Like I have all the hours and all the recommendations and all the people and all the things. And I actually registered and paid for the NCIDQ before I had my first child. Naively thinking I was going to do the exam on my maternity leave. Which, if anybody out there has kids, you just know that is ill-advised. Like, what am I even thinking? So I did not do the exam during my maternity leave. And then I came back after my maternity leave, and I was like, do I really want to take this exam right now? Like, and then I went on another one pretty quick after that. So in the end, I had always kind of thought I would take it, and it always felt really important to me in school because they really promote it in the program at TMU for good reason. And I always thought I would take it. And then I started working in residential design, and I kind of put it off for a little bit. And then I realized maybe it wasn't as important for me and what I was doing in residential design. So I decided not to take it.
And I just want, for those who haven't listened to, oh shoot, I'll have to get the episode number. I did an episode with members of ARIDO, which is the Ontario Association for Registered Interior Designers. And so if you guys are interested in this, you can listen. It depends on your state and your province. I think it's province in Canada, right? Because every province is slightly different. And I know in the US, some states require you to do an exam and to pay into an organization in order to call yourself a registered interior designer or even use the name. In Ontario, they basically lobbied the government. So they essentially own the term interior designer. And so if you cannot call yourself an interior designer legally in the province of Ontario, if you are not a member of ARIDO. And in order to become a member, it's a long and complicated thing. And you guys can listen to my other episode. I'll share that in the show notes. If I can think of it, I'll share it in the episode. And one part of that is doing the NCIDQ. NCIDQ is also an exam that Americans take. It's the same, it's standardized across North America, is my understanding. But there's certain, like if you're in the state of Florida, you can call yourself an interior designer. Doesn't matter. You don't need anything, any designation. So that's why I think it's a little bit of a hot topic. I mean, we're not here to talk about all of those things, but Adriana, do you want to share your experience?
Sure. So I want to just touch on what Jamie said. At TMU, and I believe, also at Humber, any CETA accredited interior design programs, it really is highly encouraged that you become part of ARIDO early. You can register as a student. I don't even remember now how much the membership fee was for that, or if it was free. And so that you're always sort of affiliated with ARIDO and along your journey of becoming an interior designer. So I had joined ARIDO as a student and continued that. Then when I started in the corporate world, within that studio, I think it's really important to highlight that certain studios really highly encourage writing the NCIDQ and becoming a registered interior designer. So much so that, to move up in some of the studios, it's a requirement to get certain promotions or, have certain, I think, leadership roles within the structure. So it's very, very, it can be very highly recommended depending on the studio that you're working with. That was definitely my experience. And I think I touch on that a little bit in our podcast episode of what I thought was the only route to becoming an interior designer, a quote unquote interior designer. And so I actually wrote my NCIDQ in 2019 and passed, and it was a super proud moment for me. I was like, yay, here's my NCIDQ number. I can officially change the signature title in my email and all these things. So yeah, however, recently I made the decision I still renew my NCIDQ certification annually. I think it's important. Still keep myself up to speed in terms of continuing education, because that is also a requirement that you have to meet to continue to be in good standing with whatever registered association you're associated to provincially. But I recently made the decision to put my ARIDO membership on hold, just because I've been diving much, much more into residential design. I'm still doing hospitality design, but it doesn't seem to be a distinguishing factor when it comes to some homeowners even understanding that that's a requirement. That's a whole
Very
other discussion.
Well said.
Thanks.
I know we'll do another episode on that, the details of all that stuff. But I just think it's really helpful because we haven't had a lot of designers come on here and talk about that and talk about, you have such a robust education, both of you, in interior design. And so I think that's really important. distinction. It's like you come at this with tons of knowledge in the design world. So let's talk about starting your business. So you have babies, or you're like, okay, I'm ready to do my own thing. You have that entrepreneurial calling, which everyone listening can relate to. What was sort of the catalyst for doing that? And what was that transition like?
Well, for me, the catalyst, it was kind of always part of my long-term plan. So when I actually was also a mature student, and I full career in oil and gas before interior design for like
I'm sorry,
7 or 8 years.
we breezed over that part.
Yep.
What
Yep.
was your role? What were you doing?
I did graphical user interface design. So I used to do interface design for pipeline control systems
Oh my
for
gosh,
lighting.
this is
So I used to
so cool.
like code C# all day. So
I literally have no idea what you're talking about, but this sounds
really
amazing.
random.
I
Yeah.
love this.
Yeah. But I realized one day, like I was in my office and I was reading Interior Design magazine, and I went over to visit my friend in the next office, and he was reading Oil and Gas magazine. And I walked over and I looked at what he was doing, and I was like, "Oh my God, I will never be better than him. Like he is actually interested in this." And I was
I'm
not.
sorry,
Like
I love that.
in my spare time, I was like, "Where are the interior design blogs? Like, show me what's happening with the whatever." Like, I was not interested in oil and gas. And so that's actually like the moment where I decided, like, I'm gonna like quit my job and go back to school. My parents thought I was crazy, but that's what I did.
Okay,
So
Jamie, first of all, hold on. That's amazing.
yeah.
I just made a note because I really love what you just said there, because I know there are people listening right now who have not taken the leap. They are thinking about starting a business. They're not there yet, right? I know because I hear so many people say, I started listening to your podcast and then it gave me the confidence to like take that leap. So I know there are people listening today who maybe they heard that, but I want to repeat it. You looked at this guy in your office doing, I guess, similar tasks or whatever it is to you. You saw him spending his spare time reading a magazine about the thing that he was doing for his job, which indicated he's obviously passionate and shows a high level of interest. And you had the wherewithal to have this moment where you looked at that and said, wait a minute, I'm not passionate about this. Why am I in a job that I don't also love and it's not filling me as extracurricularly in a way, right? Like you're not thinking about it on the weekends. You're not, how can I improve the thing or the other thing? And
That's
so I think that you said, like, I will never be better than him because he's more interested in it than I am. And I think that's really, like, I feel like so many of us need to like ask ourselves that question when whatever it is that we're doing, you want to excel, but there is going to be maybe a limit if you're not passionate about what you do. And thank you for sharing that. I think that was just like, what a great aha.
Yeah, and at the moment, it was like it seemed crazy. Like when I told my mom I was going to do this, she was like, "Oh my God, you've lost your mind." Like, should I literally like I applied to schools. I lived in Calgary, so I applied in Toronto. I sold my car and I like rented out my condo. Like my mom was like, "You have all of this stuff set up, like you have a life in Calgary." And I was like, "Okay, but I'm just like not into it." It's like I go to work for 8 hours every day and I hate every second of it. Like it's just not sustainable long term. So yeah, so I moved to Toronto. I put all my stuff in a truck and sent it to Toronto and started over basically. Went to school, like that's what I did. Like I had the support of my partner, which was helpful for sure. But it was just like this aha moment. I was like, I just can't do this for the next 20 years. Like it's not gonna happen.
I
So
love
yeah,
that. I love that you made that brave, bold decision. Like that's pretty scary. You also had to
it's
like go
scary.
across the country, get rid of all the things in your apartment, sell your car. Like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then go to university again, which was like really scary actually. Of all the things that I did in that time, I think going back to school was probably the scariest thing because I had not finished a university degree before then. I had started one in Calgary in a science field. And then I had a diploma from a college in graphic design because at that time, that's the only place you could do that. And so going back to school was like a big risk. Like I kind of thought to myself, like, can I do this? Like I don't know. But anyways, I just ripped off the band-aid and I did it and it worked out great. So, and now I love my job. And yeah, I like when I'm not working, I'm also looking at interior design magazines.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that.
So
Yeah, totally
so it's
amazing.
good. So it's always kind of part of my plan to work for myself and be an entrepreneur and work in residential design from the beginning. But when I went to school, I liked the technical side of interior design, and a commercial career is really technical. Like you really spend a lot of time doing drawings, learning about the building code. Like it's a really technical job. And I actually really enjoy that part of it too. So that's kind of what led me into like bigger projects, like corporate projects, hospitality projects, this kind of thing. And then when I broke off and went to residential, I had to kind of like relearn a little bit how to do business in residential because it's like the Wild West. I think
Yep.
Adriana and I have had many conversations about this. Like it is the Wild West of interior design. The standards are not the same, but
What standards? What
Exactly.
standards? Are there
well,
standards?
I take a lot of I take a lot of inspiration though in the way that I work from how I worked in corporate. Like I still work very much the same way, and I only really work with contractors and other people who appreciate that kind of detail and attention because that's how I operate and that's how I expect them to operate, and it's just not a good fit if it's like sort of off the cuff and like you show up to site and make decisions on the spot, like this kind of thing. I don't like to work like that. And so I don't work with contractors who work like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, that's just not how I like to work. So
Must be hard to find those contractors in Toronto.
I found a few good ones actually.
Good.
Like I work with probably like three who really work how I work. And so far it's going really well. So
Amazing. Amazing.
mhm.
Okay. I want to get into what the differences are. And I want to talk about, what was probably the hardest thing starting your business? Because you guys ended up taking power of process. So there was obviously a need for more learning. But before we get there, Adriana, do you want to just share that transition? What made you decide to go out on your own?
Sure. So I was on maternity leave in 2020. I had left a firm that I really actually enjoyed working with. That was where I sort of got work-life balance, starting a family, and I was working exclusively on hotels, which is definitely my passion. And I had every intention of returning to work with that studio, but then, as we all know, the pandemic happened. There's so much uncertainty. I was at home much longer with my daughter than I had ever dreamed of. It's a fortunate situation, but it was just way longer than I had ever dreamed of, period. And in that time, I had a few residential design opportunities come my way, small projects that I felt were manageable and a good way to spend some time since, no one was coming over. You can go anywhere. So I was like, okay, because I really do love design, period. And so it was really great. And as I started doing that, I realized that the residential role, there's just, like Jamie said, it felt like the Wild West. And I felt like there was a huge learning curve. I felt like I had all this experience, but the terminology I was using or my expectations of the homeowner's education and understanding of my role and the trade's understanding and expectation were wildly different. And so I came across your podcast and then your course, and I thought, okay, like I'm really enjoying kind of being my own boss and pulling the reins fully and being able to align myself with clients that I want to align myself with. So I decided to take your course, and it was just a game changer for me for understanding how to set up a residential business and how to make it profitable and all of the business acumen that you don't learn at all in school. And I don't think you get the same, like you get the exposure in the commercial studio, but on a different scale. Your clients there know your role. They value your role. They understand there's a very distinctive process and standards, like Jamie said. So this was a game changer for me. And then honestly, I had another larger residential project land in my lap, and that continued, and I just really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed everything about the flexibility that you can get being your own entrepreneur. There was a lot of uncertainty in my life at the time with COVID waves. Our daughter still wasn't in daycare at the time, and so it just felt like the right time to make the transition. Ironically enough, I never would have pictured myself being my own boss. I sort of told myself at a young age when I did my very first internship at a smaller residential firm, I told myself I would never ever choose this path, and here I am. So
I love that. So different. Jamie's like, I always knew I wanted to do my own thing. And you're like, nope, I always thought I didn't. So I think that's really cool that you guys kind of both, here we all are. Okay. So I love that. So you are, you're like, okay, I'm doing this. I've got all this experience in corporate. Like, how hard can it be? Right? Like, I'm going to make so much more money. I'm going to have so much control of my time. I imagine these are things and thoughts that go through your head. Most of us, when we go into entrepreneurship, think that's exactly what's going to happen. What was the reality? Like, tell me a little bit about what drove you to sign up for Power of Process and Designer's Room. Like, what was missing in your business in that early time?
Jamie, I'll speak to this first. Yeah, for me, it was just this whole world of residential design opened up for me as I started designing these smaller projects during COVID. And I began to like unearth all of these residential designers within the GTA and all the work that they were doing. And I was just so curious. And in my own curiosity, I stumbled across, I think you had a podcast with Tiffany Lee, and then there was some kind of cross promotion. I don't even remember, but then you came up and you had a free master class. I was like, okay, like literally I have my like 9-month-old or 6, however old she was in my lap. I'm like, yeah, all right. Like no one's coming over. So let's check this out. And it was just eye-opening for me of like how different residential design, residential business could be. And so that's really what catapulted me into that, because I was like, maybe I'm undercharging myself and I don't even know it. Maybe there's a better way around this that makes the communication easier. Maybe I'm just wrong and I have these high expectations that are not realistic in this world. And I really just wanted to have more exposure to that and get more understanding. And that's really what made me. And then on the cusp of that, knowing that I was having a larger project down the line, residential again, that's what sort of catapulted me into signing up for POP, because I just wanted to be better armed with my toolkit, so to speak, for that project.
Awesome. We'll get into that in a minute. Jamie, how about you?
For me, Adriana catapulted me into taking POP because I didn't know what I needed, but I was running around like a chicken without a head, as the saying goes. And the entire time I was like, okay, I feel like I feel like I am not good at this business thing. Like I'm really good at design. I'm really good at being creative, but there's this whole business side that I'm not really focused on. I don't really understand exactly how much I should be charging, exactly how to run this. Like I had some processes in place, but definitely not a lot. Like, and at that time that Adriana and I were talking, she mentioned this, and it came like really at a good time for me because I was working on a project, which was a large residential project. It was the first giant residential full home project. It was huge. It was like we touched everything. And when I initially, I had been kind of playing around with like pricing my services, like for the last kind of 2 years. I had been kind of like playing around with it. Like, do I like it better this way? How about this way? Am I making more money this way? Does it seem fair? Like fairness is really important to me in life, which is like not a great way to run a business anyways. It's good to have like a backdrop of fairness, but it's not a great way to sort of like step into business entrepreneurship. So I had started this project and I had priced it as a fixed fee, and I had like totally priced it wrong. Like I priced it based on the amount of the construction, which was an estimate at the time that I had priced it. And then the construction ended up being 3 times. We're talking 3 times hundreds of thousands, not 3 times 10,000, like talking 6-digit construction costs and 7-digit construction costs. Sorry. So it quickly ballooned. And then I did a very bad job on that project of doing like a change order, really bringing it up. It was kind of like things were kind of moving, and it was a hot mess. Like it was a hot mess. So I ended up on this project. It was a great project. It worked out amazing. It looks amazing. But I mean, I was through my fee probably in the first 4 months of a 1.5-year project. Like it was a mess. So when Adriana came to tell me about your class, I literally signed up. Like it was like, sign up by this time. And I signed up 10 minutes after the sign up. I was like, please let me in. I need help. So that's how I sign up for Power Process, like how I do everything else at the very last second, because it's an emergency, And that's why I needed Power Process, because I was running everything like it was an emergency. I was doing everything after I should have been doing it. And so, yes, this was extremely helpful for me. And it just kind of fell into my lap at the right time. And yeah.
I love that. I love that. I mean, I love that you, thank you for sharing, by the way. Thank you for being so open and sharing that you charged a fixed fee and you ran through it in the first 4 months, and you basically were paying to do this job. And you're like, even though it turned out beautiful, like that's not okay. You can't run a business like that. Because I think there's a lot of people listening to that. And I also think a lot of designers, they want to do a fixed fee because they think, oh, I'll just do a fixed fee so I don't have to worry about it. Like, let's talk about the money. And yes, that's what I love about a fixed fee too. Let's talk about the money up front and boom, we're done. But more often than not, designers who don't have a formula or a way to calculate their fixed fee or historical information to look at and pull from, they vastly undercharge for their services. And so I actually do advise, and I do talk about this in Pricing with Confidence, I believe, but I do advise people who are brand new to the industry to do the hourly for that reason, until you can start to get a sense of how many hours do you think it's going to take. Now, in a project like that, you couldn't have predicted your hours, because obviously the whole project just went exploded, which is great if you have the structure in place to then make more money as a result, which you didn't have. So thank you for sharing that. So you guys joined Power Process. You are both in Designer's Room. How would you say that has changed your business? Like what, like, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what has changed since becoming a part of this incredible community.
Well, I'm going to piggyback on my last comment, because here's what has changed. So when I started Power Process, I was in that hot mess of a project, which I like ate it on that project. And I currently have a project that is similar. It's not as big of a scope for sure. It's about maybe half the scope. And now I'm charging what I should be charging based on the value that I bring and the actual time I know it takes me to do things. And when I was initially pricing this project, I had taken POP, and then I was still like a bit panicking because of imposter syndrome and because of, not wanting to have that same experience I had last time, and also not wanting to price the project in such a way that I don't get it, like it was a lot of things going on. And so I went into Designer's Room at that time, and I was asking a bunch of questions about pricing, like I need to send the quote out. And somebody recommended taking the Pricing with Confidence program that you just talked about. And so I like immediately signed up for it and took it in a day, and then sent up my quote. And the clients came back and they were like, we can't wait to work with you. And I will tell you that the construction is half or maybe a third of what that other project was. And the fee is 500% of that other project.
I'm
Wow.
sorry. I'm sorry. So you are charging 500% more for your design fee than you did for the bigger project previously?
That is correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
hello, people. Everyone run and join Power Process, obviously. No,
Is that
Jamie, you knew you knew how to put the pieces together. Like, I'm so proud of you for recognizing I'm worth it. I can do this. I have the tools, or I'm going to get the tools, or I'm going to ask the people, and I'm going to go for it, because that must have felt really scary to present a fee that was so substantially greater for a project that was a bit smaller.
It was super scary. And like through the whole thing, I mean, I keep trying to talk myself out of the fee. I'm in the middle of a project right now and I keep trying to talk myself out of the fee. Like, I'm like, oh, maybe I could just include that because the fee's so high, you know? Like I have to keep telling my brain, like, don't do this. Like, you are being paid for your value and you are being paid for your experience and your education. And those are the things that create amazing projects that people cannot create without you. And that's what I'm charging for. And so at that time, it was super scary to put that fee out there. But because of like the work in Power Process, there was a lot. And also I found in designer's room, it's a lot of like, asking people questions and then them saying back, like, no, you should be charging X amount or whatever. And those things helped me, like having that community really helped me to understand that other people are also charging this amount. Like, it's okay. You're worth that amount. Like, you bring a lot of value to this. Because for me, it was my mindset before Power of Process was like, it's an exchange. It's time for money. So I put in X amount of hours and I get paid X amount of dollars per hour because I came from a background in corporate working for a big company where that's how you're paid. You're paid for the amount of hours that you put into a project. And yes, your salary is higher depending on what level you're at in that business, but that's the essential formula for how you're paid, right? And so I brought that with me through to residential design and owning my own business and without really thinking about it. And now that I know, it really helped me sort of get over that imposter syndrome of like asking for too much. And frankly, when I put this quote in, I looked at my husband and I said, I'm sending it. And if they don't accept it, then I guess we're just not meant to work together. And I
Good
sent
for
it.
you.
And you know what? They accepted it. And in terms of this project, they are so happy we have such a good relationship. They really value what I bring to the table because also I'm not underselling myself too. Like, they know they're paying me because I'm an expert and they're paying me the expert price. And they see me as an expert in response to that. So, like, the whole thing is really good right now. So it's,
Amazing. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
it's great.
I'm like so honored to have been part of this journey. How many years passed between that first fixed fee project that went awry to quoting this next project?
So the first fixed fee project started in 2021, at the end of 2021, and the construction wrapped up end of 2021, and the construction wrapped up sort of like we're still doing furniture on that project actually, so we're not it's like really dragging out here.
I mean, we can all relate to that.
Yeah, but the construction is totally done pretty much. And that is finished up maybe 6 months ago. So,
Okay, so we're recording this at the end of 2023.
mm-hmm.
So it's been
Yes.
only 2 years.
Yeah.
And you have, what is it? Not even quadruples, quintupled your design fee.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, people. 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years of a smart, savvy woman getting the support she needs, realizing her worth, and is charging 500 times more. Like, I don't know. Like, that is just amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rebecca, because honestly, like without this course and without all of the work you do to like pump us up and help us understand our worth and our value, like I would never have come to this place. So thanks for collecting all these people in one place as well to, help facilitate that for designers, because definitely wasn't happening alone at my desk, not really talking to anybody in my house. So this is much better.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm so thrilled. And that's what I'm trying to do with this new iteration of Designers Room, because I've realized that the greatest impact, yes, Power Process is super impactful. But where I'm starting to really see these amazing results, like I didn't even know these results until this week when you told me, is inside the community, because there is so much access to designers who are in the same boat, regardless of what stage of business they're at, right? They could be just, getting started or finding their footing or living the dream, whatever stage. There's like 5 stages, I always say, of your business journey. And yet you can still all learn from each other. And there's, you can ask a question in a Zoom call and someone says one thing and you're like, boom, and you change your pricing structure forever, or one thing and boom, what you're going to say to your client tomorrow. And I just think there's so much power. So I think that's awesome. Okay, Adriana, we're all waiting for you. You're waiting to give your big bang story.
Oh my God.
Not to put any pressure, but I would love for you to share now, like what's your experience been like, and how has your business shifted or changed, or your mindset in the last while since you've been inside Designers Room?
It's not going to be as epic as Jamie's example. I wish it was, but it's not yet. It's coming. No, I think for me, Designers Room has given me support in so many different ways. So this year alone, my conversion rate has changed, like, I think, I don't know, by 75% or something to that effect, because of some of the marketing coaching calls that you've had, closing the sales. That has been a huge game changer for me. Honestly, the continued support, being able to have a forum and supportive group where you can just ask the questions, whether it's I need an upholsterer, or something as specific as that, or I'm in this jam, what do I do, what would you do in this position, and getting real input from people that are taking themselves and their own businesses seriously, and so taking your question seriously and only giving you the best possible advice. Whereas before, I think I always had an impression of the design world, not just residential, that everyone just kind of kept things close to their chest and wouldn't share. And I see that really changing and evolving. The landscape is totally different. And I think a lot of that has to do with you as being part of that community. So that has also just given me the support and confidence to keep going and running my business and all of those things. And then I think one of the biggest things for me this year is I have been meeting quarterly, sometimes bi-weekly, with a couple of designers as, I guess, accountability partners. And so we really share our own goals, and or how to network, or how to get in front of the right people and help each other achieve those goals by creating these roadmaps that feel a little bit more achievable in bite-sized steps when you're doing it alongside someone, or that in 2 weeks' time when you're going to meet with that person, you should have produced your, I don't know, your revamped investment guide, or whatever you want to call it, as an example. So for me, it's been huge in that way. Actually have this year, again, not as epic as Jamie, but with every new project that I have signed on this year, it's continued to be an upscale increase in pricing. So that's a little pat on the back, because I think, like, the way Jamie explained it so well in the corporate world, it is very much, here's how much time I think I need for the project, and here's the hourly breakdown, and this is the fee, and that's how it's presented. Huge just time for money exchange, and it's a different mentality, and I think that mindset has shifted for me big time.
I really like how you both talked about that idea of hourly. I mean, I know I said when you start out, it's good to start charging hourly, and I think that's because I don't want people to lose money. But you're right. Like, once you get into it, I can see how, and I think the world is like this, not just commercial design, this idea, and like a lot of freelancers are this way, a lot of creatives bill hourly. And I can see now, hearing both of you talk about it, how, I even wrote this down actually, how when you view your worth based on the number of hours you work, it's hard to imagine that you would be worth more than that hourly rate. I don't know if that makes sense. Like it's interesting. I just thought about that. I'm like, oh, okay. So what we're teaching people is that if you work more hours, you're going to be worth more, not just financially, but also just your value, which is wrong and erroneous and not true. And the more skilled and qualified you get, the fewer hours you should need to work to achieve the same result. Right? When I first started out, oh my God, the hours it took me to put a fabric scheme together, now I can do it like that, right? Multiple ones, boom. In like less than a day, I've got the house fabric schemes done, whatever the scope is, but that doesn't mean I should charge less money. And I suppose you can continue to increase your hourly rate to compensate for that. But it's that idea of your value is so much more. And we do talk about this a lot inside the community. And I'm constantly talking about that here on the podcast, is just really valuing your worth and reminding yourself why your clients are coming to you. And you've both really eloquently talked about that. Adriana, I think you kind of breezed over something that I think is really exceptional that I'd like to kind of circle back to, is you said your conversion rate has gone up to 75%. Lady, that is an insane conversion rate. I'm curious, do you mean your conversion from consultations to full scale projects?
Okay, no.
Or do you mean discovery calls to
Discovery
consultation?
calls to
Okay.
consultations. But even so, I can't say I offer more than just full service. And I think it's just part of this year and this economy. So I have tiered services, but even at the design consultations, I've converted all of the clients. They haven't necessarily been all for full service clients, but I guess my sales approach has changed dramatically, and it doesn't feel salesy. It doesn't feel icky, because that's how I sort of felt at first. I really honed in on just talking to that client and keeping their best interests top of mind and seeing how we can work together if it makes sense. And I say this because I mentioned that because part of what I love about Designer's Room is, yes, you get the coaching calls, yes, you get the hot seat, but there's like a huge wealth of resources. And so, for example, I actually hired a coach earlier this year, and she was one of your podcast guests. So she was never directly within Designer's Room, but we talked a little bit about hiring a coach and marketing and sales tactics, and that gave me the courage to then hire her, and that just transformed my mindset and my approach big time. That impacted the conversion rate that I'm talking about.
I love that. I mean, and that's music to my ears, because for me, I feel like I'm a connector. I'm an includer. I like to bring people together. And if I can connect you with someone, and I know in Designer's Room, there's a lot of, who do you use for that? Or who do you recommend for that? And people are sharing, absolutely. But it's also about connecting you with other experts and other professionals that are in their realm. And it's something that I'm really looking forward to in 2024 as we grow Designer's Room. And I've already had these conversations, is partnering with like HR specialists, lawyers who work with entrepreneurs and small business, different professionals who will be in Designer's Room there and available to answer your questions, help you. They're available for hire, because those are the things that I think oftentimes, like Jamie said, you're sitting at home at your office, at your desk, maybe it's in your basement, maybe it's a spare bedroom, maybe it's your dining room table. And like, you don't know, like, oh my God, I need a lawyer to review this contract. I don't know who to call. Is my friend down the street the right lawyer? I mean, they work corporate. I guess I can get them to look at it, right? It's so hard to find those resources. So I love hearing that you found her or him. Probably a her, because it's all hers that I have.
I do have
most
an
of the time.
example now that I just thought of, if this is helpful, but this was a game changer for me. So I reached out to Casey, who's in Designer's Room, because I knew had experience with brand partnerships. And this was almost it was in January that I reached out to her. And she gave me her one-on-one on working with brands. And within 24 hours, I created a media kit, and I reached out to multiple brands to help sponsor or gift or work together for my powder room renovation. And that basically brought that to life, which was incredible. But it was the access to being able to talk to someone I don't know at all, because she's in Designer's Room. She gave me her time, and then I made things happen. I'm very much a doer. Like, when I'm inspired to do something or want to do something, I will do it. But I had access to that very important person to talk to give me that momentum.
I love that. I love that. And I'm dying to see the finished product of your powder room. But I know it's
Very
going to be in a
soon.
magazine. So we'll have to
Possibly,
wait.
yes.
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And it's also amazing that you have found a way to work with every person who you get into a consultation that you've pre-qualified. So of the discovery calls you've had, those people who come to you are already pre-qualified, because if 75% of them are converting to consultations, that means you're doing a really good job with your marketing and your messaging, and with whatever it is that you're sending, the materials that you're sending to those potential clients. So they are really already ready to work with you. 75% is amazing. Then at the consultation, it sounds like 100% of those people are then engaging with you in some capacity, which I think is amazing. And you mean, I know that you would turn down someone if they weren't the right fit. And that's probably where that other 25% went, right? So you should pat yourself majorly on the back. Like, you've made massive waves. I'm so excited for both of you. Like, I hope this conversation for those listening really inspires you to show you that, anything is possible if you get the tools and you implement, right? Like Adriana, like you just said, you're a doer. So someone gives you information, you don't just sit with it, you're acting on it. And I say that all the time about Power of Process. Like, it's a great course, but if you don't do the work, you're not going to change your business. Right. And then if you're in designer's room, you can be a fly on the wall and show up for some of the Zoom calls. But if you're not, actively listening to the coaching, maybe doing the exercise, we just did an end of year exercise where I actually walked everyone through what is a conversion rate and how do you calculate it? Because I know there's people here today are like, what is she even talking about? Because these are terms that I did not know existed before I was in business. And so, it's good to learn and you do absorb a lot, but when you start to implement and do the work, that's when you really start to see incredible change. You guys are such an inspiration. Okay. Anything else before we do our final wrap up? Is there anything that is on your heart that you wanted to share that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Putting us on the spot,
Right.
Rebecca.
No, you don't. We've talked about a lot of things.
Designer's room is great.
Yeah, I think I shared everything I wanted to share. I feel like the transformation in my business, like there are still areas that I'm not paying as much attention to. And like Adriana is killing the marketing game these days.
God.
And like I could take a page from her book on marketing, like just have a look at my sad Instagram. But
Thank you.
there are certain things I've decided I just like can't focus on, and I'm okay with it right now. But I'm still learning, and there's always something to learn about how to run this business and about when to bring somebody in to help you with the things that you're not good at and this kind of thing. So, but I mean, I feel like without these courses and without the community of Designers Room, I feel like I wouldn't even really know what those things were. So they're on my radar now, which is like really helpful for me.
I love that you said that. I just want to say I would never have thought of that way. It's like, you don't know what you don't know, basically.
Yeah. And that's how I was operating my business up until, being part of this community. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And I knew what I knew, which is different. Like the commercial corporate process, the way you get paid, the way you run projects, like everything was different. And so there was I had a huge blind spot coming into first residential design and second running my own business. Like it was just two things at once, right? And so being part of this community, it's like you can also see when people are having a hard time with something or something's not working for them. Like I remember when I was doing Power of Process, I was offering this package of 10 hours of design help. And I was like, this is how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to make my money. This is perfect example of one-to-one thinking, right? Here's 10 hours. I put in 10 hours. I get paid for 10 hours, right? And I really thought like, this is how I'm going to do it. And I had like 5 of these projects going on at once. And I thought like, okay, I'm really like, people love this. I'm really making things happen. And then I got on a call one day and I was talking about it and I was saying I was feeling like overwhelmed, and I had a bunch of them that were concepts all at the same time. And my I was feeling totally burned out. And I think, Rebecca, I think you just said, like, do you want to do that? And I was like, well, wait a minute. Do I want to do that?
No judgment, but Jamie, are you sure
No
this is
judgment,
for
but
you?
yeah, like maybe,
That sounds
pare your
exhausting.
design offerings down, right? And I really thought, like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then we had that conversation and like a light bulb went off in my head. Like, is this actually giving me the type of design projects that I want? Is this actually making me feel fulfilled? Because it was a lot of like, give me the ideas and then people go away and do them on their own and I never see the result. It's like, that is like the saddest thing ever. It's like it's like looking at a wrapped Christmas present under the tree and then somebody unwraps it like in a closed room by themselves and you never get to see what happens. Like,
I love that
you feel
comparison. That's
totally
brilliant.
like you missed out, you're defeated by it. So that one thing that I love is like giving people their home back and it looks amazing and they're so happy about it and they talk to you about it and they value your contribution to it. And I wasn't getting that at all with this process. And so while it might be right for other designers, it wasn't right for me. And without that conversation on that call that one day, I just never would have realized it. And I would have been just drowning in these because I was in like the bad client loop too. Like I had many clients referring me to their friends saying, oh, Jamie does this thing that's really amazing. Come get her for 10 hours or 20 hours or whatever. And it was like many people at once. And it was not sustainable for my business or for my brain at all. And so I cut that out. And now I have zero, I'm not apologetic at all. Nope, I don't do that. And I feel much better in my business not doing it. But like if I wouldn't have had this community, there's no chance I would have recognized that at all.
Yeah, it's like it's one thing to be busy and have the work, because when you're starting out, like I took every project when I was starting. For the first few years I took every project. But then I started to burn out because I had 15 plus projects. I had to bring on this team and I was maybe a little profitable, but I was doing a lot and it looked really good on the outside, but on the inside it didn't feel good. And so I think when you can be in community with others who are saying, listen, here's what I'm doing, you can do it too. If you're ready for it, then it's a natural next step in your business to say, no, I'm not going to do that type of offering anymore. I'm going to focus on this thing. Yeah, I think that's awesome. And Adriana, you were going to say something before.
I was going to say that I think Designer's Room is great because you can take it at your own pace too. Like you don't have to be a pre-established business owner. You can come in as just starting out or someone with 10 years experience. And I feel like the community in Designer's Room and your general attitude, and you meet people where they're at. And I think that's really important. So for people not to think that, I need to have 2 years business under my belt or even design school under my belt. Like I really think that you make it so open and accessible to everyone and meeting them honestly wherever they are in their career.
That's awesome. Yep. That is definitely my goal. And that's what I think is so neat is when you have people at various ages and various stages, you can learn so much from each other. Because there's the people that are new at this, but they're in their 60s, right? Or then there's the person who's more established and is in their 50s, or there's somebody who's new in their 20s, or there's someone who's brand new. And like, it doesn't matter what your age is or what your stage is. There's so much to learn. And, there's people who are in their business for 20 years and I'm like, why are you here? like, aren't you going to retire soon? And they're like, I just really want to know what's happening in the industry. I want to be tapped in. I want to know how others are doing it. I want to connect, like where are people shopping now? What are people charging? You get kind of set in your ways. So it really is for everyone. So thank you for sharing that. One thing we didn't talk about that I know we're going to be a little bit over time. Do you guys have a couple more minutes?
Yeah.
I would love to hear from each of you. What are the top 2 or 3 differences, just for fun, between commercial design and residential design? Because we kind of touched on it at the beginning and you're like, oh, it's a whole different world. It's like the Wild West. What specifically are the things? And it's okay if you guys say similar things. And Adriana, I'm going to start with you because you're having a very fabulous reaction to this question. Top 2 or 3 major differences. We don't have to go into long, lengthy conversations. Maybe we save that for another podcast, but I just think that those listening are probably super curious to hear, in your eyes, coming from commercial hospitality, what are the big differences?
Okay. The client is the big difference, one. So commercial client, they're usually from real estate departments or whatever. They have an understanding of everything. They understand when you say a schematic plan. They understand when you say design development. There is very little education, I think, that has to happen. And so that just makes the communication with the client a breeze. To the process. So there's a very distinctive process. You start off with research, analysis, feasibility, concept design, schematic design. Like there are specific milestones you have to meet in order to move the project forward. And so everyone is always typically on the same page, but those expectations are set at the very, very beginning. So again, very little education, I would say, to the client. What I should have said about the client too is that it's not just one homeowner or it's not just two homeowners. It's a room full of stakeholders. It's less personal, which can be refreshing, but you're still dealing with multiple personalities, lots of opinions. So you have to make sure that you're hitting all the marks. You're designing to brands.
Mhm.
You are not designing to, I love the Studio McGee interior. I want that in my home. Very different. Very, very, very different. So you have to have a really good sense of what that means. You have to dive into their own, their marketing team, their marketing division, their brand values, ethos, and design for that. Oh my God, I could keep going.
Can I jump in there?
Yes, please.
There's like a real thoughtfulness that goes to commercial design that I find doesn't always happen in residential design. I mean, I try to bring that thoughtfulness in to my residential design as well. But like in commercial design, you are really considering the brand and what they stand for and how they want to be represented to their own employees, how they want to be represented to the public. And so a lot of the things that you're doing, you're really bringing in a lot of sort of hidden messaging, and in residential interiors, it's more like, oh, I like the look of that fireplace. So it's like, there's no hidden messaging in that. And if I can relate that, it's a very good example of this in residential is actually Adriana's powder room. If you've looked at her powder room, she's put this flooring in that is incredible. And the concept behind the flooring comes from the original owner of the house and comes from her own background of being Italian. And there are more things feeding into that decision rather than I saw a photo on Pinterest and I like how it looks, so I want it in my house. And that, I would say, is a big difference between, it's also some designers do that differently. And so some designers are more conscious and operate in that way more, but we're really trained that way in school, I think. And so when you go to design school, you're really trained to consider the concept and the overall messaging. And when you work in corporate design, they're really only hiring people that have backgrounds from like universities and this kind of thing. So I think everyone is kind of coming in with that position, and it's needed in that environment because you are giving a message through the design to the employees, to the public. So
wow. That's really interesting. I honestly would never have thought about that. Like,
Mhm.
yes, we've talked about the client difference. Absolutely get that. The process, absolutely. But thoughtfulness and the consideration. And I think to your point, Jamie, I don't think it's that designers don't do this. I think as designers, we do naturally do this, especially those who've gone to school and have been trained in that such a way. But I think you're right. I think the difference is the client, and that the client is not asking for it. They're not intentional about, they just really want a space that feels good and looks good. And I might be simplifying it. Not all clients are this way, but you're right. I would never have thought about the branding aspect, about like what does this say? And you have to think about so much more. It's not just about how do you feel about this in your home and when you entertain? It's like, well, what about the employees? What about the public? What is this going to look like in our marketing? What is this? Da, 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 da. Like, that is so interesting. What a difference. I mean, in some ways that sounds like a lot more complicated.
That's the part I love about design so much, though, is like the real deep thoughtfulness at the beginning of a project as to how you tie these things in, like bringing in people's histories, bringing in how they use their space. Like that to me is a really important aspect of design. And I love that part.
So that's
And
the messaging I expect you to have in your Instagram when you start getting it going.
right. When I get that happening. Yeah.
Jamie
And
is totally right. Totally right. And first of all, I got goosebumps because you have been paying attention, and the fact that like you just explained my own concept for my own home. I really got goosebumps, man. I love you. But no, I think
true because I
it's
can
a strategy
see what you're
though.
doing.
The concept, having a concept is a strategy, and it is the thoughtfulness and meaning. It's like a thesis statement to an essay that you're about to write. And it's not just about the pretty, it's not just about coming up with this beautiful statement. It actually makes the actual designing part easier because you have something to go back to. It informs your planning, your space planning approach. It informs the colors you're choosing, materiality. Like you will always have justification for why you made those decisions. And I think that strategy and those design principles are really important. And that's how what I aim to do, and I have way more focus on this in 2024, is I've always been approaching all of my projects like this, even residential, but I've had trouble explaining this method, right? And that's a huge goal of mine, to make that even more transparent and seek the clients, the homeowners who do want to stand out and want their spaces being a sort of personified manifestation of what inspires them and their own personal brand. So anyway, sorry.
I love this.
Thank you, Jamie.
This just speaks so much to your value, the value that you both bring to your projects and to your clients. And if you're not already talking about this on your website, I highly recommend you go and edit your copy to talk about that, and like how that your experience in commercial is more than just AutoCAD drawings and large scale and this and that. It is so much, there's so much more value there. So I hope that you guys are having these conversations with your clients, because I think it is amazing. And I think any client would be so honored to work with a designer who is really taking all these extra layers of thoughtfulness into the design. Okay. Before we sign off today, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming and sharing so candidly your experiences, your finances, your trajectory. Before we sign off, I would love for you each to share one last nugget of wisdom, as I always ask, because I want everyone to leave here with that. Yes, that's it. I'm going to go. Obviously, they're going to come and join Designer's Room so they can hang out with you, beautiful humans, and be there and ask all the questions and grow your business. If you're listening, like, come join us. That was why we decided to open it to the industry, so that other design firm owners can come in. We've made it an extremely affordable price now. And there's like, why wouldn't you want to be in community with these two super talented, super knowledgeable, educated humans? All right. No pressure now after that. Who's got a nugget?
I have one. So I really want to like hammer home this idea that like when you're pricing your projects, when you're doing proposals, like don't discount the value that you bring to a project. You're not working one for one, time for money exchange. Like this was a real wrong way that I was looking at it. You know, you've spent years developing your knowledge, developing best practices. You've spent years learning about materials and how people interact with spaces and all of these things. That has value. And it needs to be incorporated into your pricing for your clients, the value you're bringing, not just the number of hours you're working.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. I feel like we can't say it enough. So thank you.
Yeah.
Adriana.
I think I'm going to share maybe my biggest takeaway this year is that don't get discouraged by a no that you might come across. Once you get the no, I'm terrible at this now, but there's the saying, it's like, with every no that you get, you're that much closer to your yes. And remember that you can't say the wrong thing to the right person.
Ooh.
That one stuck with me. And that's it. I have it on a Post-it.
I love that.
But I try to think about that every time that something doesn't work out. I've thrown spaghetti on a wall and I've gotten a no. That's okay. I'm just that much closer to my yes.
I love that.
Mhm.
I love that. You guys, thank you so much. Honestly, this has been so powerful. I love chatting with you ladies as always, but thank you for really sharing with our community. Can you let everybody know where they can find and follow you?
So you can find me at jamieleecon.com. That's where I keep all my projects and all the beautiful photography. And you can find me at Jamie Lee Khan Interiors on Instagram. I may or may not post depending on where I'm at in a project, but there is content on there, so you can go check me out there.
And you can find me at adrianadesign.ca. And I'm on Instagram at Adriana Pie Design.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I loved those last nuggets of wisdom. I wrote everything down in my notebook here. I like to write things down so I don't forget, even though I know I can always listen to the podcast again. But Jamie and Adriana, thank you so much for coming out of the podcast today. And just honestly, don't you agree that they have just been completely open and vulnerable and really forthcoming? And I think that it's so powerful. Is that it is a private, safe space where you can come and share and get information and learn. And of course, there are trainings and there's worksheets and there's workshops and there's expert guests, but also there's this incredibly supportive space where, regardless of where you're at in your business, you can get support, you can get advice. And I mean, their successes, and these are just the beginnings of what is going to be incredible careers for both of them. I can see it already. And the reason I can see is I'm futuristic, so I can see the future. So Jamie and Adriana, if you're listening, I know success is coming your way even more than you're already there. But I'm so excited to support them on this journey. And I love that they shared some of those really specific, tangible things that they implemented, the mindset, the pricing to help them level up their business. I hope you guys give them a follow on Instagram. Go check out their websites. Again, it's Adriana Pietropaolo Design, Jamie Lee Interiors on Instagram, Jamie Khan, and Adriana Pietropaolo. Thank you so much. And if anyone is curious and wants to learn more about Designers Room, it is now for the first time open to you. It used to be exclusive to my POPs. That's why all these episodes you're hearing or will hear are from designers who've taken Power Process and Designers Room. But it's actually now open to any design firm owner, regardless of if they have taken my courses. And so you are going to fast track your learning curve because you're going to learn from all of them and me inside Designers Room. You can go check it out. Go to RebeccaHay.com/join and you'll get all the information. I hope I'll get to see you inside our very next coaching call. Have a good day and I'll see you soon.